embedded options that are valuable to issuers include the right to call bonds, the right to an accelerated sinking fund, and a cap on the floating rate bond. The ones that are valuable to holders include the right to put, the right to convert to equity, and the floor on a floating rate bond. Of course, prior to the sale and purchase, none of these features actually represent an advantage to the buyer or the issuer. That is because all these features are priced into the price of a bond. They're not really advantages or concessions because suppose, let's say the issuer sells a bond with a call option. You may think that okay, it's an advantage to the issuer, but because of the existing call option in the bond, the issuer is going to get a lower price. So you can think of it as the issuer having to purchase the call option. If these features do not represent an advantage to either party, why do you have them in the bonds at all? Because a bond is a contract, and the contracts would evolve in a fashion to lead to efficient economic activity. So when parties enter into contracts, the features of the contracts are priced into the contracts, and the reason the features are there are to make economic efficiency possible. For example, consider a simple feature, a covenant which requires that the issuer make timely coupon and principal payments. This feature, what it does is that without it, the issuer would not be able to sell the bonds. You would not buy a bond which said that I'll pay whatever whenever I feel like. So you would want a bond with a covenant saying that there has to be timely payments of coupons and principal. And the reason this would lead to economic efficiency is that it would enable the issuer to raise funds for positive NPV projects. So you have money to invest, let's say, and I'm an issuer with positive NPV project for which I don't have money. So we enter into a contract in which you provide me money and I undertake by means of these covenants to repay you, and this allows for economic efficiency because capital has been transferred to me to use in positive NPV projects. Here is a look at how volatility affects bond price using a graph. So we first have the plot of price versus yield. So yield is plotted on the x-axis and price on the y-axis for a non-callable bond. For this bond, as the yield keeps falling, the price of the bond keeps rising. When the yield is 0, what do you think the price of the bond should be? Well, for a 0 yield, the price of a bond would simply be the sum of the face value and all the coupons, because the discount factor will be 1, so everything will just add up. This is the plot when you have yield and price for a callable bond. What happens in a callable bond is as the yield keeps falling, at around this point, there becomes the strong possibility that the firm is going to call this bond. So, whereas the non-callable bond continues, the price continued rising, for the callable bond, the price starts diverging now. And it falls below the price of the non-callable bond because there is the apprehension that this bond is going to get called, and for a sufficiently low yield, the bond will certainly get called, and then the price just becomes flat at the call price of the bond. So as yields fall, the call option puts a ceiling on the value of the bond to the holder. Whereas for a non-callable bond, falling yield is good, all the way down to a yield of 0. For a callable bond, as the yield falls and it falls to a certain level, the bond is certainly going to be called. So you have then the price in a ceiling of the call value of the bond. And increase of volatility increases the value of the option. That's standard option behavior. So as the holder is short an option, the bond holder is short a call option which is owned by the issuer, and increase in volatility means that the value of the bond will fall. Margin purchase of bonds is when the buyer borrows part of the price of the bond from the broker to buy the bond. So why does the buyer use margin purchase? Well, same reason that you use margin purchase for other securities. It enables you for a certain amount of capital to purchase more of the asset, and if the price goes up, it means there will be larger profit than you would have if you did not use margin purchase. The interest rate charged by the broker on the money lent to the buyer is called the call money rate. A repurchase agreement is when the seller of a security agrees to buy back the security at a later date. So the seller is effectively borrowing money for the period of time starting from the time of the sale to the time of repurchase. The advantage of the seller is that the interest rate for the borrowing would be lower. Why would that be? Suppose I was to borrow money from you and I offered you some bonds, and I give you the bonds, you give me money, and I agree to repurchase the bonds from you at a later date. So you do not have the risk of me defaulting. Well, I could still default on the agreement to repurchase it, but you would at least have the bonds. So you have some collateral from me. And if I did not default, then you would not even bear the risk of the bond price changing during this period. So interest rate which the seller pays, the interest rate which I would pay you, is called the repo rate. If the period of this borrowing is 1 day, then it is called the overnight repo.